What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, and welcome to our first show of 2021. I know last year, 2020, was tough for a lot of people, and I'm so happy to see that all of last year's problems have been solved. 2021 is off to a smooth start, and obviously it's going to be a great year. Let's kick off our first interview today with Nimesh Patel. Nimesh is a great comedian. I follow him on YouTube, on TikTok. You can check out his album on Spotify. Head Nimesh in Charge is probably not just on Spotify. It's a great record. Nimesh was the first Indian writer ever at Saturday Night Live. He was a writer for Chris Rock on the Oscars, for Hassan Minaj at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He's got some great stories about, becoming his own man after all that background in writing, and what it was like sort of transitioning to doing his own thing. We talk about drugs and electronic music. We talk about comedy, parodies, and tributes. We talk about learning from failure. He has a really cool trick in his shows. I don't know if it's a trick exactly, but he has really, really cool something he does where he does a lot of crowd work. He talks to the crowd. He asks them questions, but he always tells them, hey, I don't really care what your answer is. This is just a setup for a joke. And what's cool about that is, it makes people laugh. It takes the pressure off. It's actually not entirely true if you watch his comedy and you see that he might have a joke in there somewhere, but he is digging into it with people. But I love the tone that sets of really taking the pressure off himself and his audience, and you can kind of feel the energy shift. Maybe you can use that in your presentations, in whatever you're doing in business. In your difficult conversations at home, there's probably a way to take some of the pressure off and let the flow happen. Anyway, let's get into our interview with Nimesh Patel. I think that's true, but it's also like, well, I'm a journalist. This dude is running his mouth saying some crazy ass shit. Like, how am I supposed to just ignore that and let it die down, right? Like, that's not our human nature. Our human nature is somebody says some garbage, you want to
respond and talk shit back. Yeah. It's a balance. I think the balance is how serious can you take somebody versus how insignificant is a person with 3 subscribers saying you don't know how to do comedy.
That's right. Yeah, of course.
All right, man. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Right on. Well, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to, we talk about music and culture, and comedy is part of that, and just, your journey and whatever feels good we can get into. But I've been, like I said, been digging your comedy. I just listened to the album. I actually didn't know you had an album out. Yeah.
That was a sleeper. I think it's the greatest comedy album I've ever put out, but I like it a lot. Just objectively, as married as I am to it, objectively, I just like the structure of it and the flow of it all, and the jokes are pretty good, I think. So, but thank you, I appreciate it.
I thought it was great, and I'll say it. So, Head Nimesh in Charge is the album. Yes. For everybody listening, go check it out.
Thank you.
But like for me, I thought it was great, but also it reminded me of, my childhood when I used to listen to comedy records, and I still have, my Eddie Murphys, my Bill Cosby records, my Richard Pryor albums, whatever. And that feels like, maybe they're still coming out and I just don't know it, but like, it's a different experience listening to a comedy album than it is watching some shit on YouTube or Netflix or whatever. Like, to me, not having the visual actually adds something.
Yeah, because you kind of imagine it, and part of you is just like, wait, why is everyone laughing? Right. Pryor is so physical. Mm-hmm. When you listen to some of Pryor's stuff, you're like, fuck, I wish I could see the face he was making, because the face or the action he's doing is just killer. But it adds a different, because you can picture stuff differently, and it definitely adds an element to it. And it feels like you're just there by yourself almost.
Right.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And I think maybe the jokes have to work a little harder because you don't have the visual to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. It's it really, it benefits comics who are really strong writers, and I think I'm a very strong writer. So if you're actually listening to what I'm saying, you're like, oh fuck, that shit's hilarious, and that I like very much about the purely audio medium of it all.
Yeah, no doubt. So I want to talk a little bit about how you got started. But even before comedy, I know you're into music. You talk about hip hop a lot in some of your jokes and on stage. Do you remember the first record you ever bought?
First record I ever bought, it was one of two albums. It was either Drag-On's Flame On, I think that was the name of the album, okay, or Usher's first single, You Make Me Wanna. I think they came around the same time. I might have bought them at the same time. I remember those record stores in Parsippany, New Jersey, and I've just bought these two. I think I may have bought them at the same time, but I think that was when Usher just broke through, like with that first hit single, and Drag On was DMX's like protege as part of the Rough Riders, and I remember his rap style was just like so fast and obliterating. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Drag On. And I was like, God damn, I had to buy that too.
That's funny.
But yeah, those are the first two that really I can remember. I know I bought them. I just don't remember if they were the first ones. But they're first ones I remember buying.
I mean, those are two good starts. It's funny, Drag On is so obscure.
Yeah.
But it's a good place to start. And then were you ever trying to make music?
No, I mean, I would always I was super into Michael Jackson, and I mean, as a kid, maybe when I was like 10 or 11, my cousins, and with us, 8 of us who like grew up together, 8 first cousins who kind of grew up together. And the 5 older ones of us, like we like pretty much spent the most time at our grandparents' house together. And my uncle bought my cousin a drum set, and so when we were like 10 or 11 or so then like 4 or 5 of us would pretend to like string music together and play together and sing and dance and shit, but it never really, obviously didn't really go anywhere. And then I always liked like writing parody bullshit, parody songs and stuff. Like Weird Al was always like, man, that's just hilarious, I could do that shit.
For sure.
And I'm not musically talented. Like I can't sing or play an instrument, but I do have the ability to like write rhymes, and write just funny shit. So last summer, I guess it was like, if you listen to the full album, if you listen to track, I want to say 27, track 26 or 27 of the album is the beginning of like the B-sides for the album. And the track 26 and track 27, if you listen to the very end of them, I hid 2 parody songs. Each track has a parody song hidden at the end. And that was like the beginning of me putting out a full-on music album of parody songs that I had a friend of mine, super talented producer, produce. And then I had met one of the servers at the Cellar is this guy named Armin, who's like an incredible singer. And he and I were friends just from like me being at the Cellar all the time and shit. And I tapped him to help sing and rap on a bunch of stuff that I couldn't do. And then my friend Mateo Lane, a very talented comic on his own right, sang for like 2 or 3 songs. But I wrote like everything with Steve, with Armin and Will's help. And that was probably the most musical thing I've done. Just like writing all those songs to like parody everybody. And that's on YouTube. It's called Platinum Patelities. And I just did like 12 or 13 tracks of parody shit. And then I have an original song coming out that my friend Will and I constructed because I'm really into EDM music.
Okay.
I got into EDM music recently, and I thought it'd be funny to write a funny original EDM song about the drugs that you do while you're likely listening to EDM music. And that's hidden at the end of Patel 2020, the half-hour special that I just put out.
So how'd you get into EDM music?
Doing drugs. My friends. Well, I mean, I would listen to it to study when I was younger. You know, like Darude, Sandstorm, and shit. But I never really understood the whole genre.
Sure.
I still don't know the entire genre. I just know what I know. But like a few years ago, my friends were doing Molly, and I tried it for the first time. I was like, "This is incredible." And you know, Molly's not done at like a hip hop concert. It's done when you're listening to like Rufus Du Sol or
right.
Some other EDM DJs. And I was like, this is amazing. And so whenever I'm doing Molly, it's easy as an EDM concert. And that's how I kind of got into it and stayed. Like now I'm not on Molly all the time listening to EDM music, but when I'm listening to EDM music, like I've come to like EDM music ex Molly. You know, it's just like good brainwave grabbing stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
So it's a weird circuitous route to liking what like millions of people like, but you know, whatever works.
I mean, I think that's pretty common though. I think, you know, people, you know, somehow or another you get dragged to a rave and there's music and there's drugs, and that's just part of the culture, you know. And even it's funny because, you know, I've you know, hopefully I'm not spilling anybody's business, but you know, you see Puffy hanging out at, you know, backstage at Ultra, whatever, you know, I know Dre was like, there's rumors, you know, he's messing with Molly for a minute. And like, it's just, you know, they go together. Like you said, you're not going to really put on gangster rap and be all, you know, ecstasy out.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, it's become more and more part of the culture now. You know, I mean, Future's got a bunch of songs about doing Molly. Like,
for sure.
Everyone's talking about, everyone's done it, and everyone knows how great it is. And now it's even being studied for use in like depression treatment and stuff, which is interesting. So that's why I do Molly. You know, it's just that's how I came to like it, and the music rather. And I kind of regret not being. I don't know if I regret it because I don't know what I would have done if I had discovered Molly in my 20s, but. You know, when my friends were going to like Ultra and Governor's Ball and all that shit, I didn't go. I kind of like, damn, those shits would have been dope. But now, you know, if they come around again, I'll definitely be there.
Sure.
As like the old 35-year-old in the corner, it's just laughing at 20-year-olds passing out.
There's a few.
Yeah. I don't mind being one. I guess I'm just sunglasses. Even when I go to parties now, I'll just be in the middle of everybody, but just like by myself, just like listening to music and just like vibing out. It's fun.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things I've noticed, I mean, you're very prolific. You got a lot of projects happening.
Trying to be, yeah.
You know, writing behind the scenes, plus, you know, your specials and all that. Is there, what, tell me about how you got started writing, and like, what does it take to get good at writing jokes? Because you write, I mean, I know you wrote for SNL, you write for other people as well as your own.
Yeah, I mean, how I started writing in general, I think back to like when I was in 4th or 5th grade. I took like, my mom signed me up for Johns Hopkins University distance learning program, which is, I guess, like some, you know, money-making scheme for the school.
I mean, maybe they knew about virtual learning was coming.
Yeah. No, it was all letters and mail, but it was.
Oh wow.
It was my first dip into writing above my level. I mean, even like my grandparents were English teachers in India, and so I've always had like a strong English background. You know, I grew up watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and all that with my grandparents. And then, you know, fourth, fifth grade, I guess like I had a early noticed talent to write stuff and word choice and all that. And so my mom signed me up for this thing. I remember having fun with it. I always enjoyed writing. People always told me I was a good writer, like even essays and, you know, all the school shit. And then freshman year of college, I remember thinking I was going to be a doctor, but I discovered this doctor named Richard Selzer who wrote a bunch of essays about being a physician. I was like, oh, this is fucking dope. This is really cool. Tim O'Brien, who wrote the things they carried, really like that essay, really impacted a lot of my subconsciously or consciously, like, impacted my writing choices. And then, you know, when I started comedy, it wasn't even clear to me that a lot of it was writing. You know, it's not articulated that this is a heavy writing thing until you start doing it. You know, sure. Like, oh shit, I got to write all the time. And to that end, I was writing constantly. When I first started, I was just like writing just whatever I thought down and try to make it funny on stage. And, you know, that's kind of ebbed and flowed. Like I'll go through big writing phases, and then I'll go through culling phases, and I'll go through organizing phases where I'll be like, oh, okay, I feel like my brain is empty. I got to organize all this shit. And I'm sorry, it's such a long answer to your short question.
Yeah, that's okay.
But that's kind of like it's evolved. Like my personal writing stuff. How did I start writing for other people? It's just like, you know, when I don't really write for other people. You know, when people say I've written for other people, it's more just like I wrote for the Oscars for Chris, but, you know, Chris did everything. I wrote on SNL. I submitted jokes, basically. You know, like I was there for a year, and I just gave, you know, you just write a bunch of jokes, and if they like them, they like them, kind of thing.
But that's different, I imagine, than writing something that you're going to go up on stage and deliver yourself.
Yeah, I mean, at some point at the show, and at some point at, you know, in comedy in general, like my voice is, at least for me, pretty defined, or at least it's like at least right now where it's at, like I'm good at articulating my own stuff. So when you're writing for someone else, I mean, even writing at the Oscars for Chris, it was like trying to find what I would say, but saying it in his voice, you know, and that's a different skill set. And, you know, working with Hassan and on the White House Correspondents' Dinner and the Congressional Correspondents' Dinner, same thing. It was like, these are the jokes I would make. Now you figure out what part of the joke works for you and figure out how you would say it. You know, at some point that becomes the distinction. You know, like if you're writing for Fallon or Seth or someone, you know, I've never written for those shows, but I think you are more likely adept at writing directly in their voice.
Right. Sure.
Whereas when I've written for people like Chris or Hassan, it's like, these are the jokes I would say. Now you take whatever you want from that. You know what I mean? And then, you know, randomly it would be like, I've got the perfect joke that would sound perfect if Chris said it, or perfect joke that would sound perfect if Hassan said it. And then you say those two, and then, you know, they like them, they don't. But in general, it's more just like, these are my thoughts. This is the joke that I would think of. Now you figure out how you would say it. And if it's how you would say it, then that's how you say it. If not, then, you know, take what you want.
Yeah.
Make it your own.
I know in the album you talk about, at the end, you talk about like, you know, at one point you got started in comedy, but you were still working a day job, or you were still pursuing a different career. Was there like a moment when you decided or realized that comedy was going to be your path?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was thinking about it last night. There's probably a few that I can identify, and if I think even harder, I'm sure there's a lot more signs from the universe I should have just been doing comedy. But you know, the clearest one was in 2015. I was working as an associate in private equity. My capacity was in private equity, but technically it was a family office where we were looking at investing in sub-Saharan Africa. And that summer of 2015, the CEO of the firm resigned, and I was like, oh shit, what am I gonna do for work? Like, I have it too good at this job where I'm making, decent money. But I have a great work-life balance where I can still do comedy at any time I want. Now this job is coming to an end. I basically have like 5 or 6 months to figure shit out, but there's no way I will get the same job because my job as an associate, the way I'd carved it out at this firm, would not exist anywhere else, where I would have the same work-life balance and shit. And so that summer I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And that was July and August of 2019. And that August, I used to run a show called Broken Comedy, and Chris came to that show to see Langston Kerman, and Chris was late, so Langston couldn't go up. And then once I heard Chris was coming, I was like, I'm going up. And Chris saw me and told me I was funny. I was like, oh shit, okay. My job might be ending, but I just got, Chris told me I was funny. And then 3 months later, in November of 2016, 5 years ago, I got an email saying, hey, Chris wants you to write for the Oscars. I was like, oh my fucking God, that's fucking bananas. And then January 31st of 2016 was when my job officially ended. I was officially laid off January 30th or whatever of 2016. February 4th or whatever, I was on a plane to LA to write for the Oscars. So it was just like perfect timing almost. And then, after that, I thought I would have every writing job in the world. I'd just been vouched for by the greatest comic to ever exist, and personally hired by him to write for the biggest, only the third time a Black person's ever hosted the Oscars or whatever it was. I thought I would be, comedy royalty. And once February ended, it was like, oh, okay, I guess it was just back to being nobodies. At least I was. And I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? I started looking for a job again, copywriting or whatever. And everyone's like, you need a portfolio. I'm like, I was just at the Oscars. Here's a picture of me in a tuxedo. At least your firm can say you hired a guy that wrote for the Oscars. Sure. But that didn't happen. That April, Hassan hired me to write for the Congressional Correspondents' Dinner, which was his first sort of breakout, big deal kind of thing. That's like the grooming role for the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And wrote for that. So that kept me a little afloat for like April, May, and I was back on the job hunt. And then that September, I was like, fuck, I got to find a job because no writing work was coming in. I didn't have a spec script or anything that was up to par to get me staffed or anything like that. And I wrote for Awkwafina's Go 90 show. She used to have a talk show on Go 90. And it was like me and this woman named Tina who hired me and one other person, Shamika, I believe, and Nora Awkwafina. And it was like the four of us writing for that show. And that was like that was the thing that said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to hang up my finance resume and just tried this whole comedy shit out. And comedy writing and comedy stand-up and all that stuff. And I passed at the Cellar that summer too. So when you pass at the Cellar initially, if you're good enough, you will get a lot of spots, just to like welcome you to the club and get you up to speed with everything. And so stand-up plus the small writing work that was trickling in like kept me afloat enough such that I was like, you know what, if I'm not like balling insane or anything. I'm not balling at all, but I can pay rent and eat. And that should be enough for a little bit. And hopefully, hopefully things pick up. And that December, my friend and I sold a show to MTV2, which was like pennies. But even that was like, man, I just sold a fucking show. This has been a banner goddamn year. And I was like, no, fuck it. I'm gonna just do comedy. And that's like that 2016 was like the definitive year of me saying, all right, fuck it, I can't do finance anymore. You know, I'll just stay in comedy and hope for the best. And it's been a long 3 years, but here we are. Yeah.
So it seems like success, especially I think in entertainment, is like is a lot about just grinding, right? Being willing to go through the ups and downs, to get shit on, to bomb on stage, to to like face those obstacles and keep going.
Yeah.
And I think there's some of that in other areas of life, but you talk about your finance job, like most people don't go through it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful, and it sounds like bullshit, but I'm grateful for the stuff that I've lived through. And I'd say this, in hindsight, obviously, because I made it through. Yeah. And regardless, like that's the only thing that keeps me going through stuff that I am and would be going through now. It's just like I already went through this. Hopefully, I can get through this, because there's no kind of going back to the world of finance that is so secure. And I feel like I saw in what you messaged me about, talking about entrepreneurship. Comedy's never, stand-up at least is never, or at least I've never heard it really spoken about as a very entrepreneurial endeavor. And part of entrepreneurship comes with failing constantly. It's like just constantly failing and making sure you can learn from those failures and hopefully not being destroyed by them. And not necessarily destroy that you give up, but like your whole approach to shit changes. Right. If you went through something you didn't know how to necessarily handle it, and that approach could misguide you for 2 years until you fuck up again and realize you've been fucking up this whole time. Let me do this again, But no one tells you any of that. There's no stand-up, entrepreneurial coach. There's no stand-up CEO that you could emulate or follow. It's like, right. I got Mamba mentality and Lee Kuan Yew's, Prime Minister of Singapore's book, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, okay, what can I glean from this that will help me in comedy? And
so what helps?
That's what I've been trying to learn.
What helps? Maybe not now, but when you're in it like that and really, like I said, failing constantly and just keeping going, like. What do you lean on to keep pushing?
Friends, family will always pick you up, or they may not even know what is in your head, but they'll be a very welcome respite from whatever's going on, even if you're not telling them what's going on in your head. But in addition to that, it's like Chris telling me I was funny really carried me a lot. Friends who gave me jobs and they didn't have to, because they saw something in whatever I was doing. Yeah. Chris again gave me tons of work, just because he believed in my comedy and me as a comic. Like I got to open for him. He flew a bunch of us out to help him, just let us hear when he was working on Tambourine. A few of us were on set when he did the week of, just to like help punch up, but really just to hang out over the summer. So it's like stuff like that. Like I've just been more and more aware of looking for signs from the universe that things are going to be okay. You talk to P. Diddy, it's like it's always darkest before the dawn. And so that's really all it is. It's just like I really have no other option at this point. Like I don't know what the fuck I would do short of like going and get my MBA and even that would be a fucking massive uphill battle. Who wants that much debt right now?
Of course.
So, I really don't have a choice but to make it, whatever make it is. So
does it ever get easier?
It comes and goes, the easiness of it all, like even in August, I was like, man, things are going to be fine. And now it's November. I'm like, oh shit. Like the YouTube YouTube, like it goes like this, and it could fizzle out and then spike and just like, fuck, what this variability is fucking bananas, but it's like, it gets easier in the sense you know what you have to do. But I haven't relaxed in like 3 years since after SNL. I haven't, but that's like really when I was just fully on my own to do everything I had to do.
Right. Has there been have you gone out and bought something stupid because you felt what's the first thing you bought that was just like a dumb purchase because you had the money?
I mean, while I was at SNL, I don't regret any of the purchases that I made because granted, I was making money, but I really enjoyed, going to the after parties and having my cousins come out and just like buying all the dinner and drinks and all that shit. And then that I don't regret at all. There's definitely clothing purchases. I'm like, how the fuck? Who needed $400 sneakers? It's like I didn't need to do it. Stuff like that. When I got the day I got the job, I went to Kith, which is down the street from me.
Of course.
And I bought a $400 pair of Y3 Ninja sneakers, and they're so fly. They look incredible, but why the fuck did I do that?
I mean, I think Kith exists for people in those moments.
Yeah. Oh man, I fucking made it. Let me get these $400 sneakers.
They should send you a text when they know you're closing a deal.
Yeah, they really should. They should be aware of their demo. And be like, oh, we just, they should be monitoring my chats for congratulatory texts. Oh, we saw you got a congratulations. We've got this new Y3 slide that you should check out. All right,
definitely. So one of the things I like about your comedy is like you talk about, I mean, obviously you talk about your heritage, but there's I think some comics, like that's kind of all they talk about, right?
Yeah.
Is, they have like the one topic, like they talk about sex or they talk about, their ethnicity or they talk, and you kind of like, or they talk politics. You kind of cover a wide range of topics. Is that, is that on purpose? Is there a upside or downside to that?
The things I've talked about has kind of evolved with what I perceived the taste of audiences and industry to be, that's not a source of regret. It's more just like a lesson I've learned is like why I don't give a shit about what anyone else wants to hear. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. When I started, I was like, the very first set I did, I was talking politics because like Chris was a huge influence in the sense of like, he was probably one of the first, I think he was the first comedy special I saw, Bigger and Blacker on HBO. If it wasn't that, it was Dana Carvey's special where he talks about chopping broccoli.
Okay.
It was one of those two, but I remember Chris's the most. And so when I started comedy, I was like, that is what I got into it to talk about, the stuff like, there was a lot of observational stuff about and family stuff and personal stuff. But what resonated most with me was the opening about I got on the elevator and two high school white boys just got on with me and I just dove off. It's like, what a perfect way to talk about Columbine, and it's like that really kind of molded me subconsciously. And over the evolution of my stand-up, I think year 3 or 4 or 5, probably like year 4 or 5, I started getting back into talking about bigger social, societal issues, and then also keeping personal stuff to talk about. And that is kind of like the first joke I remember Chris laughing at while I was on stage that summer of 2015 was about Cecil the lion, and like how ridiculous it was that we cared when certain animals died, but other animals we kill all the time. You know, like I remember saying I had 4 chickens today. Why do we care about lions? And Chris laughed, and that's what kind of put me to blackout mode. And I just went, I did like 10 minutes of the best set I've ever had. But that was like year 5, and I was like, okay, let me talk about what's going on in the world and what I feel people aren't really saying about, you know, the way society's reacting to stuff. And that is kind of maintained as a through line in my stand-up if I'm looking at it. And what I continue to do with what I will continue to do with my stand-up, you know, like if I'm doing something different, if I'm going to talk on my next album or next half hour or hour, which I've working titles Hindu Kush, it'll probably be about really personal stuff, about like religion and God and family, but I will try to, the goal is to tie it to larger issues that are happening in the world.
Sure.
And so short answer, comedy's evolved for sure, but I think the path I'm on now is cool. The thing that I'm talking about right now is what I will continue to talk about, at least for the next year or so. And I definitely get bored trying to make these long-winding, cool jokes. And I will, you know, the first year of comedy, I was like really trying to be Mitch and write like pithy one-liners and shit. And so maybe I'll go back to that. That's just a fun exercise. And maybe I'll do an entire album of just Stephen Wright, Mitch Hedberg kind of stuff if I can do it. You know, It might just be something I do just to do, you know.
I mean, that's interesting. I think, you know, I've had this idea. I've pitched it to all the comedians on my show. Nobody likes it. But like, you know, I wonder, so I'm assuming you're not going to like it either. Well, you know, look, in music, you can make cover songs, cover albums. We can remake movies and TV shows. Why are there no comedy cover acts?
Well, you know, it's funny. I remember this comic when I first started, who had like the same premise of that you just said. And he was an Asian guy, and like he did like N-word versus black people, but did it for Asians, and it's like, oh, that's why that doesn't exist, because it's just like it doesn't hold the same way, you know. Like there's a Mark Normand and Matt Ruby used to do this show called Shtick or Treat in New York, and I think they did it in LA a bunch. I think Luisa Diaz produced it at some point, but it was comics on Halloween dressing up as their favorite comics and then doing material as those comics would do it, but not the same jokes. Right. It would be, you know, someone doing the net, but about fucking, I can't finish the joke, but, you know, that kind of thing, which I think is funny to me. You know, it's so hard. The thing with jokes is that they're so concise and so precise that the way they're written, by definition, is like the only way it's supposed to be done. You know, it's like music, like it's kind of more open to interpretation and how you feel about a song. Whereas a joke is like, this is how the comic intended it for it to be said, and this is what this comic thinks is a perfect delivery of said joke. That's why I think it's a bit harder to do covers of songs or covers of jokes and shit. Not to destroy your idea.
I'm open to the fact that it might be a bad idea, but
I don't think it's bad. I just think it's a little misplaced. I think,
but I think part of it, and you know, I'm half joking that like I don't know if I'm serious that it would be a good idea, but on the serious side, like, you know, we have comics who are dead or retired or whatever. And it means that their material is now gone. I mean, obviously it's still recorded, but you know, but it's different. obviously seeing it live. It's
Yeah.
right. And so we have that, you know, how many people are going to go back and listen to those Richard Pryor albums who are not the diehard fans? And so that means that his material for most people will be gone. And another generation, they won't really necessarily even know who he is. Right. But and to your point, there's the race part of it, but a young black comic, you know, could maybe come in and revive some of that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be an interesting experiment for a bona fide comic to do. You know what I mean? Like if Dave or Chris came out and did Pryor and stuff, it'd be very interesting to see what, you know, like I saw Chris reading Steve Baldwin, James Baldwin the other day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did he was reading one of James's essays. It's like, that's really powerful and interesting, you know? So on the same note, it would be cool, but it would take a huge comic to do it. And it would obviously have to be for no money, right?
Sure.
It'd be like just an honor kind of thing.
Yeah. Or it could be a charity thing but you know, it's funny, even like, you know, Seinfeld, right? He's still touring, but his old material, he's not doing his old material, right? And so there's, you know, again, there's hundreds of jokes, you know, that worked at one point and that people are just not hearing today. Whatever. I don't know. I just think it's an interesting thing
it would be dope. It would be interesting to see, like, you know, Schultz or someone do Patrice, or, you know, just like, or like Colin do Patrice, or Colin Quinn, or you know, Dan Soder do Hedberg, or Stephen. You know, it'd be fun. That would be a worthwhile experiment. As I think about it, I don't know the logistics of it all, but I think it would be cool, actually.
I'll believe it to you.
All the other comics that said no, you guys are wrong. Josh and I are going to put this together.
Exactly. So, you know, I know it was a big moment. You know, you got kicked off stage at Columbia for their, I guess, misunderstanding of a joke, or their, you know, whatever. To me, it's like it's such a weird world that we live in when, you know, liberals become the anti-free speech people, and then conservatives are just raving lunatics. There's a, you know, the amount of sane people left is just like shrinking.
I don't like talking much about Columbia anymore.
We don't have to.
But I'll just say, like, it was. The only reason I don't like talking about it is because the only thing I really think about is what else I could have said while I was on stage while they were doing it. You know what I mean? That's like funny. It's like the classic comic shit. Like, fuck, I should have said that. Oh, I should have said that. You know, like, what was it? My only regret is, like, I was so caught up in being, like, sincere that I couldn't think of the funniest thing to say quick enough, you know, and you know, if it were me now or me 2 years from now, I'm sure I would have something pithy or dumb or just funnier in general to say.
Yeah. I mean, to, you know, cut you some slack, like, first of all, I imagine that's a tremendous amount of pressure. You're in that moment. And also they probably wouldn't have got it anyway, because they had already, you know, gone whichever direction they're going.
Yeah.
But, you know, I am curious I'm curious what you learned from the experience.
I mean, what I've learned from the experience is mostly that people are willing to run with anything, and won't take a beat to just, like, think for a second. You know, like, even the person that, you know, the reason it got so big was because Columbia is a huge journalism school, has a huge journalism school. One of the students that was at the event was, like, was a writer for the Spectator, Columbia's newspaper, or whatever, school newspaper, and another journalist who was a Columbia grad, who was a right-wing journalist, so to speak, saw that article that was written in the Spectator, and then took it and did her own interpretation of it, And then that is what blew up because she has like 20,000 or 15,000 Twitter followers or whatever at the time. And that's what made it kind of blow up. And I was like, this lady is 2 levels removed from something. And it's so easy to make both sides of what happened seem the victim. And so, you know, there was no real clear, there was no moment where everyone just paused and like, wait, what? This is a non-story. This is nothing. This is a fucking, this is just some crazy glitch in the matrix. And I, you know, the thing I think about thinking, a part of me that I should have said on stage is like, you realize you've completed the prophecy for half the people who think like this is what's going to happen to college. You know, like that's what I was thinking. Like, God, we're on the same team. You know, what are we doing right now? And that's probably the biggest takeaway. Is like everyone just needs to take a minute to just chill for a second. And it's like a function of, I said this in the op-ed at times, like it's just a function of how our society has kind of changed to be so quick and reactive. It's like just taking one. If the lady that had written the Spectator article or the lady that had written her own version of what happened had just taken a minute to just been like, wait, what are we talking about? You know, like, oh, it would have been fine. You know, Jamal Khashoggi had been murdered like not 2 weeks prior, you know, and yet I was the story. Sure.
So I think in terms of your career, it was it didn't have any negative effect on your career.
I can't say if it did or not. You know, I don't know what colleges were lined up and or were looking at me and said no. It definitely boosted my profile for a lot of people, but at that point in time, my profile was not complete or not as robust to be robust enough for that to not be a defining moment for me. You know what I mean? Like. You know, up until at that point, I was 3 months removed from being the first Indian on SNL. I was the first Indian to write for the Oscars. I'd been hired by Chris Rock. I'd done a bunch of other cool shit that I thought was, you know, equally, if not more impressive from a comedy standpoint. And now I have the bomb heard around the world. You know, it was like, all right, fine. I guess this is what it is. But I can't say if it cost me anything. I'm sure it did. I'm sure people soured. I know I was pretty sour about 1 or 2 colleges that hit me up saying, "Hey, do you think it's best if we, you know, bring you on given what happened?" I was like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?" And I was pretty curt with some schools, and those schools didn't end up bringing me. They still paid me, but I was no longer a speaker at their school. But long term, no, I doubt it'll have much of a meaningful impact on anything that I've done. But it is something that I'm just like, oh, it's like I own it now. It's like, yeah, I'm the Columbia guy, but you know, I've also done a bunch of other shit. But
but it's cool. I mean, you talk about on stage about doing jokes for you, right? Yeah, and I think that is a hard lesson for all of us, right? To make shit that we care about that speaks to us, and to kind of, you know, to accept the fact that once you put it out in the world, you've lost control over it.
Yeah. I mean, had I known, you know, what I was doing that night at Columbia, and the reason I have the full set on tape, you know, is because I was trying to run an hour, and I had very little opportunities because I'm not a headlining comic where I can be I can headline, but I'm not like I don't have a billion tour dates or anything. And so I was just trying to run an hour every chance I got. And I was like, oh shit, I'm at Columbia. I have an hour of time. I'm going to do an hour. And when I was stringing together a set, that joke literally is like 5 or 6 years old. And I honestly up until that point, thought I was the only one who had ever thought that no one would choose to be gay if they're already black. I honestly thought I was a fucking visionary with that joke. Come to find out, Dave has a similar joke, and Solomon Giorgio has a similar joke. And I was like, oh, okay. And, I guess I'm not the first person to think that. And had I known that, I would have never done that material. Right. But it was more just like, I have to do an hour. I got to do all the jokes I have because I don't know what the fuck an hour even is right now. That joke, I hated it. I hate all jokes after I've said them like a billion times. Like, it's just like the comic thing. It's just like, I hate the instant the joke is done and it works. I'm like, all right, this joke is done. Right. It's like, oh, fuck it. But that joke was for me. All the jokes are for me. And if you like them, you like them. And that's what I said on that stage. It's like, if you like this joke, okay, cool. Guess it's not for you. And then the Pence stuff hit. And then, the rest is kind of Joe Rogan history,
So let's talk about new projects.
Please.
Yeah. So I know you got Zoo Idiots. I saw that online.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Tell me about that project. It was really cool. I saw the first episode.
Yeah. I mean, when quarantine happened, so one of my biggest purchases while I was at SNL was going on safari. My then girlfriend at the time, now my wife, had put together this trip before I even got the show. And I had saved a little money. I was like, okay, we had booked it like a month before I got the job. Before I got SNL, a month before. And then ended up happening in April 2018. While we was on that trip, we met this guy named Jeremy. Fast forward to 2 years, quarantine happens. I get an email from Jeremy saying, hey, do you know any comedy writers looking to work on this project that my friends and I are like this learning group that we have put together? And they approached with this idea of like, animals, how animals must be reacting to quarantine. And because, Venice, dolphins were being seen in Venice canals for the first time. And that kind of inspired them to be like, oh, animals must be thinking crazy shit. And they wanted to do a bunch of Twitter accounts about animals talking to each other about what was happening in quarantine. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun or engaging or anything. It could be done, but I don't know if you're going to get your return that you're seeking from an impact perspective. Because these group of guys didn't do it for money. They just wanted to do it for the art or the impact of it all. And by guys, I mean rich investors who can spend money on shit like that. And so I came back with an idea of, why don't we make a cartoon? Let's animate something. My friend Mookie Thompson, like a savant when it comes to television writing. We've worked together for a long time. We teamed up and pitched them this idea called Zoo Idiots, about a bunch of animals going through quarantine at a zoo, and we'd animate it all and produce it all and write it all. And over, what is it, November now? I guess 7 months, we, from development of characters to Bible to story to designing the characters to, hiring the animator, finding an animator, producing the sound, the music, the voices, getting casting, rewriting, writing, all that went into it. And we were finally able to put it out November 2nd. But it was really just a labor of love because we got paid pennies for the amount of work that we did. Because it was literally like it's like a full-time job almost. It wasn't, but it felt like one. Sure. Because it's almost all we thought about. It's the only thing I've thought about for the last 7 months has been stand-up and Zoo Idiots, and then obviously my own pilots that like I don't want to talk about that I've just written, but like the stuff. Zoo Idiots and stand-up is the only thing I've really kind of thought about, and that project has been like such an eye-opener and a learning experience of like dealing with from dealing with executives to casting to I became a voice actor over the summer. You know, it's like all that shit I just kind of learned to do and was taught to do by Mookie. And it's a project I'm incredibly proud of, and I can't wait to see what happens with it. You know, it's just like, what I've noticed on my YouTube is if people signed up for stand-up, and now I'm putting a cartoon out, and people are just like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, look, man, I mean, just because I do stand-up doesn't mean I don't do other shit and that I'm not interested in other shit. And if you like cartoons that have meaning that you have to pay attention to, but are strong joke-driven, strong character-driven shows that might end up on Adult Swim or some other, network that really understands what the fuck this cartoon is, then you will like this cartoon. One of my favorite jokes is we were talking about global warming, and the monk, the main character, goes, "We're going to turn down this AC so that you guys don't melt like a toddler in a hot Camry." It's like, what? like where are you seeing that joke? Like that's the kind of, we're talking about global warming, but we're referencing one of the meanest things that could possibly be said. And like, that's the kind of comedy I like. That's the kind of material I want to on paper put down. Mm-hmm. And if you like jokes and you like animation, then that show is for you.
Nice.
ZooIdiots.com. Once again, that's ZooIdiots.com.
So, you're the first YouTube channel I've seen with the subscribe button. I guess that's a new thing, or not subscribe, to join.
The join button, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that's a new thing that paid subscription to individual YouTube channels.
I was just like, all right. So I went from 1,000 subscribers in March to 65,000 now. And, my special, the hour that I put out in March, like once quarantine hit, just did really well. Yeah. And that kind of inspired me to keep it going. And the join thing, they introduced it like, I guess like a few months into when I started seeing some traction on YouTube. And I was like, okay, like this could be interesting. Like, Patreon is an option for like exclusive stuff, but the transition from a YouTube subscriber to a YouTube member is a lot more seamless. You don't have to leave the site.
Sure.
And you can kind of tier perks and all this kind of stuff. And so I was like, oh, let me see if I can design something around that. And that's why I did it. And it's worked well. I feel like I engage a lot with my members, but it's dwindled only because members haven't been engaging as much with me. Like they still pay money to be members, but I'm like, I try to do like a high talks or a Q&A like once a week, or open mic once a week, and less and less people show up. I'm like, that's fine. I just hope you feel like you're getting your ROI on the money that you've paid,
Right. Is it different? I've had other people on the show and talk about, I have a guest who has OnlyFans, and we talked about like the difference in the comments or in the relationship that you have when somebody's paying versus all the YouTube comments and Twitter. People just run their mouths, whatever.
The members are a lot more cordial, and I feel a different appreciation for them. I feel I owe them something different. I owe them something more, rather, than just a sort of standard non-interaction. They're definitely a good group of people who are like super supportive, and it's heartening to see. I have fans who are willing to pay. Granted, it's only like $5 to $10 a month. Sure. Who are still willing to do that for access, and it can definitely feel a little weird. Because a lot of the time it's like me doing this, but to people who can't necessarily talk to, like, I'm not talking to fans the way I'm talking to you. It's they're chatting or whatever, and I'm just saying shit. It feels a little weird because it can get really personal, but that's easy to kind of just taper off. I'm just like, oh, this is not a question I want to answer, or a path I don't want to go down necessarily. So. But yeah, they're awesome. I'm very appreciative of all of them.
Yeah, it's cool. And I think, one of the challenges just in social media, digital media is like we've made everything free. And, that was sold to us as a good thing for everybody because, you can get more out there, you can reach more people and whatever. And it's true, there's pros and cons. I think there's also, that generation of the internet missed the fact that we appreciate shit more when we pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a balance, like I'm just like, all right, am I at the point where I'm definitely not at the point where I can just keep everything for people who pay for it.
Right.
Like at least the breadth of my material, like the personal stuff, the interactive stuff, I'll keep for people who like the access to me. I will give to people who are willing to pay a little more. And people who might value that access, like the 65,000 subscribers, not everyone's going to be like, I don't give a fuck about what's happening in your day or to get high with you,
Yep.
I just want the stand up or the cartoons or whatever, which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But for people who want a little more, they get it, I think.
So what's coming up next? I know you had 2 specials this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, I put out my hour in March, which I shot that in August of 2019, and that was, maybe 60% of what I was running at the Columbia stuff. So, that like 6 months, it took like 6 months to put it all, 7 months to put it all together because I had all the material. It wasn't like I was writing a new hour. It was more like, how do I structure it, make it flow, and build the transitions in, and then run it a bunch of times. So I put that, I recorded that in August of 2019 because I put my album out in August of 2019 on August 20th, which is my dad's birthday. I was like, that's 10 years into comedy. It literally to the day, I started August 19th, 2009. So when I was 10 years and a day in, I put my album out and recorded that hour. And then we were shopping it to HBO. HBO was like, nah, you're not famous. I was like, yeah, well, I mean, it's your job to make me that. But all right, take a risk, but they didn't. And then once quarantine hit, I was like, fuck this. Let me just put it. People are going to be at home. Like, I'll just put it out. And so I put it out. It did well. And then over the summer, I realized I had a bunch of stuff that I had been on stage with maybe 10, 15 times total that I really wanted to just say and get out there because it was not going to be relevant, after this year or even after the election. And DC had always been kind to me as a stand-up. Whenever I recorded my album in DC. When I opened for Aziz there that week, the week that I put my album out. I mean, the week I recorded my album was like Independence Day week. So the July 1st and 2nd, Aziz let me open for him. And so like, I got a bunch of fans that way. And DC had always just been kind. So I was like, let me go to DC and see if I can put together a bunch of secret shit and speakeasy level shows, recorded all that, hired people to record and found the venue and all that stuff. And, that's out now. It's called Patel 2020, patel2020.com. And now what I did while I was there, I did probably 7 hours of shows. So I did 4 shows, but I did basically an hour and a half each night, almost hour and a half to 2 hours each night, of which like 30 to 40 was me doing stand-up, like the set that I put out. And then the next hour, 10, hour 4, whatever, was me. I just lit a joint and talked with the crowd, and I had a bunch of stuff like material that I wanted to see if I could hit or not. But I ended up just doing like Q&A, and like the first show I ended up just doing crowd work, talking to 1 or 2 people in the crowd for like an hour and 10 minutes, figuring out this guy's life, and everyone fucking loved it. Second night, I did like an hour 10 of like the most like heartfelt Q&A. It was just like genuinely answering questions.
Wow.
Which wasn't funny at all, but it was fun. It was like people were like looking with big old eyes, like, oh shit, we're hearing this shit. Third night was like a magical night because there was a doctor up front, and she was very defensive about healthcare, and I do not like healthcare in America at all. I think it's broken in so many different ways, and having studied it, you know, I have very strong opinions on it. So we went at it for a good 20 minutes or so, which was fun, and that I can't wait to release all that. And then Saturday was a slightly different venue, so I did an hour and 40 minutes of crowd work, just talking to the people that had come out, and that was a fun night on its own because like it was like a bunch of 23-year-olds who were driven from Philly, sitting up front, and I just fucked with them the entire time. And this couple that was on a first date, I made sure that they would not see another date. Unfortunately, the questions just got heavy, and the guy was just too honest.
That's funny.
You know? So,
man, I don't know if you ever seen Leslie Jones live. But,
I love her. She's so much energy. It's insane.
But I saw her, I think last year at out here, the Comedy Store, and she just ruined this guy's night.
Oh,
like
no.
Screaming. It was like a dude in his 40s with a like 21-year-old date. And she fucked this dude's life up for sure. I mean, they're definitely either married now. Most likely they've never spoken again.
Yeah. No, I mean, this couple was on a first date. This group was on these two were on a first date. And so it was just like a perfect situation where I was like, well, look, I mean, you're either going to survive this or you're not.
That's cool.
But, you know, these are the
something
questions
to talk about forever.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the guy messaged me like, man, I did not get laid. I was like, my bad, bro.
So, you know, it's funny because you always, you know, I've heard you say in a few sets, like, you know, you're like, I don't, you'll do crowd work and then you'll go, you know, your answer doesn't matter. It's just a setup for a joke. And it's like, that's actually not true because you kind of get into it with them, and maybe you have a joke, you know, planned, but you kind of do get into it with them. But I think it's an interesting, like, saying that takes the pressure off. Yeah,
that's really, it's just a little device to get a laugh before I actually do start probing people.
Sure. I like that.
And there's always, you know, I don't give up too much of the sauce, but there's always an anchor that I could come back to when if it gets too far away. And while I was high those 4 nights, part of me subconsciously and consciously was like, all right, let's see how far away I can get from what I had just asked. And then if I can remember to come back to what I was talking about. And you know, for the members who will, I'm going to put out just the uncut set. Like, cause you know, it's like, if it's an hour and 10 minutes of crowd work, like 60% of it is just like me talking to myself, basically. You know, the laughs are there. It's just like, you have to be in the room for that to actually mean something to you.
Yeah.
But that I'm watching it now, it's like funny to see me trying to come back to what I'd forgotten almost to talk about, and then, you know, challenge the crowd to be like, oh, you thought I was gonna forget that shit? No. I'm right here, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I got to get to a little lightning round before I let you go.
Oh shit, okay.
But before I do, do you have a favorite comedy album?
I had Nimesh in Charge by Nimesh Patel.
That's right.
Fuck, that's a difficult question. None come off the top of my head, but I have been listening to Richard Pryor live at the Kennedy Center. I'm not sure if that's the name of the album, but that's where he recorded it at the Kennedy Center in DC, and that I've been playing over and over. And then like I'll just tell Alexa to just be like, yo, play songs by George Carlin, and I just listen to whatever, you know. But so I don't know if it's a full album necessarily. It's just like random bits that, you know, shuffle on and off.
That's cool. I know Live on Sunset Strip for me, like, changed my life. My mom took me to see it in the theater when I was like 13.
Wow. And, you saw that shit?
You know the movie.
Oh, the movie. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's when they used to
see that when you were 13?
Oh yeah, I went. I had actually, my grandmother took me to see Robert Klein live.
Wow.
Down in Long Beach, and he, in the middle of it was a small club, And in the middle of a set, he's like, we're laughing, me and my grandmother. He's like, who the fuck brought a kid to my show? And he goes off. He goes off on my grandmother for like 5 minutes for bringing a 12, 13-year-old to his show.
That's incredible.
It was hilarious.
You never forgot it.
Nah, for sure.
You never forgot. I did Knitting Factory one night, like 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and Knitting Factory in Brooklyn. And there was a 13-year-old in the crowd, and no one had talked about it. And he was right in the front.
Sure.
And I was like, how the fuck, what irresponsible piece of shit brought this, you know? And then I just talked to him for like 10 minutes of the set, and his mom, who brought him there, came up to me after, was like, thank you so much. He will never forget that moment in his life. It's just like,
I mean, it's 100% true. And I think, you know, I have 11-year-old son now. We don't censor within, you know, limits, but basically we don't censor what he watches or listens to, you know, and he watches comedy way above, you know, his grade level. And I think that is part of growing up, you know?
yeah.
And you know, experienced ideas and stuff that you're maybe not quite ready for, but it's in a safe, it's jokes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, my parents they were always watching movies and comedy and stuff, but it was never like stand up, you know? It's like, it was never, I was never told, go watch a stand up comedian, but this guy's hilarious. Although my mom loved Dana Carvey. And we would watch stand up together, but I never realized what was going on. I never put it together. And then Chris Rock, HBO, Bigger and Black. I was like, this is comedy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Lightning round.
Yes. Sorry.
What's your favorite city to travel to?
Washington, D.C.
Who's your favorite DJ?
DJ Cypher Sounds.
What's the last great book you read?
I'm reading Kurt Vonnegut's A Man Without a Country right now.
Oh, okay.
That's a collection of essays, but yeah.
Nice. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Bad Boys 2.
Okay.
I love that movie.
Nice. We just speaking of Martin Lawrence, my son wanted to watch House Party. We watched that last night. It is a bad movie, but it's fun anyway.
I gotta watch those in '93.
Yeah.
It's gotta be early '90s.
And that's where they at least on screen. That's the beginning of the Kid and Play dance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a good bad movie. You know what I mean?
I haven't seen it at any age where I could discern what was good or bad.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, fair enough.
I can only follow random plot points when I was watching that shit.
The money aside, is there a brand that you wish you had started?
A brand that I wish I had started? Ralph Lauren. I'm a big Ralph Lauren stan. If I could afford only Ralph Lauren stuff, I would. Granted, you know, they didn't start including non-white models in their shit until like yesterday. But also Nike, of course. Like I'm fucking Nike. I just finished Shoe Dog.
Oh, that's cool. It's a great book.
Yeah.
That's cool. And Ralph Lauren he changed the world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iconic American clothing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you could wake up tomorrow having gained any quality or ability, what would it be?
Meditation. Like if I could be a perfect meditator, I think that would benefit all my other skills, or the ability to dunk. It's one of those two things. It's either super spiritual or very superficial.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe one could get you the other.
Yeah. Who knows, man?
Last question. If I worked for you, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
Listen, man. Just listen. I'd probably say that the most. Listen, man, it's gonna be fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for doing this, man.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So much fun talking to you. Definitely everybody should check out Patel2020.com. Check out Zoo Idiots. I've been digging the Gucci Turban podcast. I don't know. Y'all still doing
back.
that?
It's coming back. It was just on hiatus because I had to get a bunch of ducks in a row. I now have 2 producers. And so we're going to really ramp up. Got some cool guests lined up. But yeah, it's coming back. It was just on hiatus. I had to figure a bunch of shit out. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good stuff, man. We'll keep at it. Love to see you in LA sometime. Hopefully, whenever we're traveling again.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you so much for having me.
That was Nimesh Patel on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you follow Nimesh on YouTube, on TikTok, on everywhere that you consume comedy. And then leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought. Hit us up at Rebel Radio Net on Twitter or Facebook. You can find videos of a lot of our episodes on Rebel Radio Net on YouTube. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.